this is gonna be a very special life. Um, Sorry, let me see. I'm trying to connect with South Africa. There seems to be a problem now with the connection. Jason, are you there? Hello? Okay, this is the kind of things that happen when you have a live feed with another country. Okay, yes, it's coming in. All right, hi Jason, how are you? So nice
Hi,
to see you.
Victor. I'm
How are
good.
you,
Thank you for
man?
having me.
How are you? Okay, well, Jason is disappearing again. Okay, let me tell you about Jason. Jason Meir, he's director of Animals Lebanon, and he is in South Africa today. He went to see the little lion that they rescued about 3 months ago. Remember Mars? Okay, Mars. They changed his name to Pythagoras for some logistical reasons. But look at him. Mars was rescued in Lebanon 3.5 months ago. He was just a little lion cub. Remember him? Look at him now. So Animals Lebanon took him to the wildlife sanctuary of Drakenstein in South Africa. And today Jason is there checking on Mars, and he's going to tell us about the work of Animals Lebanon, and not only with dogs and cats, but also with lions, wildlife, chimpanzees, and basically any animal that needs his help. Let me introduce you to Jason. How are you, man?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. It's nice to be here. It's nice to see our animals in good shape at the sanctuary. So I have to apologize, a little bit shaky, but he's far from the fence line now. But Pi
It's
is
okay.
enjoying. It's a beautiful
He's
day here.
nice, nice. By the way, he looks amazing. He looks like a real lion now. He was just a
Yeah,
little cute thing, but look at him now. He's coming. He's coming.
here he comes.
Oh man, look, he's starting to. He's the way he walks now is different, right? You
Yeah, so I
see,
mean, I'm much more confident and just getting bigger here.
yeah, this is so cool, man. I'm so happy to see this. Wow.
And the nice thing, just over here, there is another lion here. This is Stewart, another lion we rescued from Lebanon back in 2019. So
Okay.
Stewart has kind of been the ambassador lion for Pi,
Uh huh.
and very nice because their fence lines are only a few meters from each other. So they talk to each other through the fence, and they're kind of good friends actually now.
Wonderful, wonderful. I guess it will be like with cats. First, they have to meet through the fence, and then they will know each other already, and they will be together, right? Something like that.
Yeah, so it's much easier to integrate them when they are still at a younger age.
Of
So
course.
by chance, Pi will be integrated with a female, which I brought just a couple days ago.
Okay.
So she is similar age, and usually it's easier when it's a male and female pair.
Okay.
So once the female gets settled in, then they will be introduced. So actually
So you
behind here, Pi has a whole nother enclosure. So they will go into adjoining enclosures to get used to each other before being released.
wonderful. So you brought him a girlfriend. He must be so
Yeah.
happy if he only knew. And she's also from Lebanon. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we've actually brought now, we have 7 lions at the Dranketstein Lion Sanctuary. And
Uh-huh.
over the years, we've rescued about 22 big cats. So it's very
Wow.
nice. We have some animals in Europe, some in the UK, some in the US,
Hmm.
even in Brazil and Kenya. So really, it depends on the individual animal and its needs at the time and what kind of group it can fit into.
What are the circumstances in which you rescue these lions? I mean, is there a common trend? Is there a common denominator of the way these rescues happen? For example, Mars, we knew he was bought by this TikToker. He was making videos. What about his girlfriend that you brought to him? Freya is her name, right?
Yeah, so we've dealt with the trafficking of wildlife in Lebanon for at least 15 years. And just because Lebanon really only shares a land border with Syria, that if there's going to be these animals, they're either coming across the border from Syria or they're coming through the Beirut airport. And in some cases, they're actually bred here in Lebanon at private zoos, and then they are sold on to the public. So the
Private zoos.
positive thing.
Define private zoos because I'm sure our audience don't really understand what private zoo is.
So these are facilities which are usually just as any business. You know, in many countries, you might have a zoo which is more for the city and it's somehow operated by the government or in partnerships with universities. This is just private owners collecting animals and charging a fee to come in. So they're
Okay.
still open to the public, but it really has nothing to do with the government. And until recently, there was very little oversight. So anybody would open a zoo, put whatever animals they could find there, and it was just a way of making money.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, the care of these animals is so poor that they would just let an animal die and replace the animal. It's easier to spend $5,000 or $10,000 and buy a new lion than it is to properly take care of the animals you do have.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Do any of them come from private hands, like someone that just bought a lion because let's have a lion? These things happen sometimes.
Yes, actually, our first lion was back in 2011, and that lion is named Leo. He's here at the sanctuary, actually. That was just bought as wanting a private pet.
Yeah.
And so Stuart over here, he was kept at a zoo in the south of Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was just a privately owned zoo. And that would have been the fate also for Pi, but luckily we got Tim out. So, yeah, people keep these as social status. That's it. They want the animal, they want to show off. But the problem is, once they get a little bit older, it just doesn't work out.
It
And
doesn't
usually,
work. I'm sure it becomes a big problem for these people. It's nothing to show off. Definitely.
yeah. So
Oh
I
my,
think he's very proud now. He's up on top of his house here because it's soon feeding time for him.
how beautiful. I'm sure
Let me
he's
get.
much happier now. How long do you think it's going to take his rehabilitation and integration process?
Integrating, we hope that he would be with Freya and settled within the next just few weeks. Freya actually was quite easy once we got her here, and she's settled in within a day or two. Um, so it doesn't have to be hard, but it's really up to the individual animals. So you never can guarantee 100%, but they're both still young and they're both friendly enough. I don't think it's going to be difficult. So I'm actually hoping to see some pictures and videos and updates in the next couple of weeks of them being together.
Wonderful, wonderful. About 3 months ago, when Maggie contacted me, Maggie, another director, co-director of Animals Lebanon, contacted me because you had just rescued Mars, and it was like a bit of a challenge in those days. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges that you face when you rescue a lion in a place like Lebanon today?
Yeah, for example, I mean, Mars Pie here, for him, this was a big court fight. So we've passed a national law in 2017 in Lebanon dealing with all types of usage of animals. And we had Lebanon join this international convention called CITES, which protects these species.
Uh huh.
Um, but when you find something like this, it goes through courts. So we have to use lawyers and judges and ministries and actually fight. And knowing that those people are also fighting to try to prevent us from being able to take these animals. So I think the court case for him took almost a month. As soon as we had the ruling, we got him out of the country within just maybe 2 weeks' time.
That was so fast. I know.
And it's that you never really know because they're worth a lot of money and there's ego behind it too, and people don't like to give up their animals or feel like they lost. So We actually had one court case for a chimpanzee, and that dragged on for more than 3 years, where the zoo just kept suing us and countersuing us and making it as impossible as they could. And then, other than the legal aspect, it's just the day to day care. So, Mars, when he came, he was still small. So, it's feeding him 2 or 3 times a day. And yes, they really require close to 24-hour care. And some of those specialty products, even like the vaccines for big cats, are not readily available in Lebanon. Some of the special food powders we have to import from Europe. Otherwise, they can start to develop some bone deformities, some
Yes,
problems
of
with
course.
growth.
Of course, of course. What about the logistics? Most of our community is used to, I mean, we all have dogs and cats, so we're used to traveling with our own dogs or dog rescue. But what are the logistics of a lion rescue? Does it change a lot?
In terms of yeah, I mean,
Procedures, paperwork, do they fly with the same airline? Is this I mean, how different is the process of flying a 300 kilo lion to flying a 8 kilo dog?
yeah, so it really depends. I mean, the paperwork for any of these types of animals, once you're talking about endangered species, is the same. But for an animal like this, I'm having to get numerous permits from Lebanon and from the importing country and all these different airline approvals. So you can end up with 20, 30 pieces of paper before
My
you have
God.
everything in place. And then specialized cages, just because they are more aggressive and potentially harmful. So they have to go in specially designed metal cages. So it's cutting a steel cage for her.
Mhm.
And then, depending on the size of them, that just presents a challenge because once you have an adult animal and the cage, you can be talking about 300 kilos. And then
Yeah,
you might
exactly.
have to arrange, depending on the situation, you have to get forklifts or cranes and all the rest of this trying to move the animal. And oftentimes, when they're adults, having to actually dart them to be able to move them from their enclosures at the zoo into the transport crate.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a number of logistics, and usually we fly in specialized wildlife veterinarians to help us with this because while we do have good vets in Lebanon, you just don't have people with the same expertise with wild animals.
Yeah. How did it all started? Because I mean, you said how many big cats have you got in Drakenstein already? And how did you started your relationship with Drakenstein, your partnership, I think
Um,
to call it?
so from the beginning, Animals Lebanon was never focused on a specific species. We help animals in general, and we're really looking towards the more long-term changes. That's why a big focus of ours is on legislation and on education. But if there's an animal in need and we can help out, we'll do really any species.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, Animals Lebanon started in 2008, and I think the very next year we were already working on closing one of the zoos. So for some of the sanctuaries, you have very good places which are accredited, which have a history, which have the facilities and the long-term knowledge, and that you're not going to run into problems 5 years down the road.
Hmm.
Yeah, over the years we've sent now 8 lions to Drakenstein. Unfortunately, one was sicker and old and needed to be euthanized a while back. But yeah, we currently have 7 lions here, and they're all doing well.
How nice.
And yeah, we have chimpanzees in Brazil, we have bears and wolves and foxes and hyenas in the US. I've sent lots of different primates to the UK.
My God.
A couple crocodiles that we've rescued too. We helped a sea lion many years ago. So, yeah, a wide range of species. So it really depends on what's showing up in the country. Back in 2017, we rescued 3 baby tigers that were being trafficked into the airport, and they are now at a sanctuary in France.
Hmm.
So this is work that I've done even before Animals Lebanon, and
Yeah.
just continued on now that I'm here in Lebanon working with these animals.
For the past 4 years, many things have changed in Lebanon. The country was already in a big crisis, and I guess since the explosion that destroyed the city practically, many things must have changed, and I'm sure you have new challenges. Um, how are you getting help? What is your
Yeah, it's
relationship with other organizations? How is your
yeah,
international community?
it has been difficult because in 2019 Lebanon had a terrible
Jason,
economic
Jason,
crisis.
Jason, Jason,
Yeah,
excuse me. Turn the camera. Let us see your
yeah.
face.
Hi
Okay,
everyone.
that's
Uh,
Jason.
while we do that, maybe we'll go for a walk here in the sanctuary and I
Okay,
can show some of the other animals from
sounds
Lebanon.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
So in 2019, Lebanon had a terrible economic crisis, and overnight the currency was hugely devalued and every bank savings was trapped. So overnight, nobody, including Animals Lebanon, had access to their funds. And before that, about 85% of the funding for Animals Lebanon came from nice people within Lebanon. So this is a Lebanese organization with Lebanese supporters, and that's very encouraging. But overnight, all that disappeared. And then national protests. And then finally in 2020, we had the terrible Beirut explosion where there was more than 8,000 people injured and more than 200 people killed. Even for us, that was a terrible experience. It damaged our office. We had broken glass at the office. We had injured animals. So by the time we could even show up to our office, very sad because the office was actually quite covered in blood from injured animals running around inside of our office.
For
And
those of our friends that don't know, there was a huge explosion in Beirut harbor, which was the closest thing to a nuclear explosion in the middle of a city. It was all. It turned out to be like a big, massive accumulation of chemicals, and the whole thing exploded, and it caught the whole city and country by surprise, and it was awful.
yeah, that is still, I think for most of us, that's still an emotional thing. And yeah, just the damage of that, the number of people that we know that were injured, the terrible stories that came out of it the next days. And so we really didn't, nobody knew those first hours what had happened. Um, but because of our proximity to where the explosion happened, and just because we care, because so many of our volunteers and supporters were in the area, in that first week, we rescued so many animals because everybody's pets escaped. Within 1 second, all the doors and windows were blown off of every apartment and building. And it was very nice that over the course of that month, we reunited about 180 animals with their owners. And only about 20 animals that were reported to us were we not able to find. So out of about 200 reported missing animals, we found just over 180 of them and got them all back to the owner.
That's amazing.
But so sad too, because seeing the devastating effects of that and what happened, um, yeah, very difficult.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
see, lots of that damage is still there. So no, the city has not been fully rebuilt. You can still see the effects of that explosion.
and how did that affected the support you've been giving? Because you were telling me that you were and you are a Lebanese organization with most Lebanese support, but I guess this changed, right?
There was lots of good people around the world that helped out during that time. So yes, so lots of different foundations, organizations, Lebanese living abroad. Lots of people actually supported Animals Lebanon to enable us to do that kind of work and to provide for people that, overnight, even if you had your pet, you had lost your home and you have no place to put your pet. So lots of those animals ended staying up with us for maybe a month until those people could be settled and better able to take care of their animals. We also provided, I think, close to 12,000 kilos of food. So it's trying to look at if you've just lost your home and you've went through that terrible thing, what can we do to make life a little bit easier for people? And yeah, it's been very challenging. So after the economic crisis, only really at the end of last year, almost 4 years into it, have we finally broke even. And before it was trying to consider what are we going to do to make animals up and on smaller and how are we going to get through this. So it really did take us almost 4 years to rebuild, and now we're trying to start again and take off.
Every animal rescue organization that I know, it seems like we're always affected by the same problems, by very similar problems. So it's not the same thing rescuing dogs than lions, but at the end of the day, to gather support, to build a community that understand your work is so crucial. Is so crucial.
Yeah,
Maggie
I
told
think
us,
that's
yeah, Maggie told us that you were putting a lot of effort on Instagram. You're launching your YouTube channel, and yeah, I mean, it's essential that you build a community.
yeah. So for Animals Lebanon, we see ourselves kind of different in that we are not a shelter, we're not a rescue, we're an animal welfare organization, which is kind of in it for the long term, and we know this isn't something that changes in the matter of a couple years. What I am most pleased about is now Animals Lebanon is almost 16 years old. And when we started Animals Lebanon, people would laugh at the issue, they would laugh at the organization. Now it's something which is normal, which is expected, which is respected in the community. So it has changed in, a decade and a half, where before caring about animals was seen as something silly, where now it's seen as something which is important and normal. So it's very nice to be part of that change and actually see it happen. But it's something that we can't quit on. It just requires work every year for the coming decades and decades. It's something which has to be just a normal, ongoing thing in society, and to keep telling people of the importance. And especially knowing all the difficulties in the country over the last years, that it's hard to make this a priority.
Yeah, of
So if
course.
you want, I'll turn the camera around. These are two of the other lions that we
Turn
brought
around,
right before Pi.
show us some lions. Come on.
Yeah. So this is the sign. This is Isam,
Okay.
and there's another one down here. The sign. This is Kelly. So this is them here relaxing underneath the tree. They're kind of far away from me, but we'll zoom in a little bit here to see them.
Okay, it works. It works.
So that is Kelly and Isam. They were rescued actually from a wildlife trafficker in the north of Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
And what is pleasing to us is that previously it would have to be us fighting to try to get the government to pay attention to these issues, where in this case it was actually the army and police which saw these lions, knew it was wrong, confiscated them, and then contacted Animals Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to take 1 minute just to highlight. So this is Isam. He was the male of the group, and he was actually named after a journalist friend of ours who's covered animal issues for years. But he was actually one of the first journalists in Lebanon killed in the current conflict. So he was filming of Isam and Kelly, and just a week after that, he was sadly killed. Mhm.
Wow. How is the current conflict in the area affecting your operations? It seem to be,
It's
I mean, Lebanon seems to be in the brink of war all the time for the past I mean, few months. It's just,
um, Yeah, I mean the war has been going on now for 9 months. I can't say that we have any special knowledge or expertise of what has happened or what will happen, but yeah, I mean, it can affect on so many different ways, and even the tourism is affected, the economy is affected. There's been tens of thousands of people which have had to move away from the border area. There's been some strikes closer to Beirut, and there's just certain areas which are kind of off limits and not safe to go. Even some of our staff are from the region in the south, and they are going on a weekly basis providing food for homeless cats and dogs that are there near the border. But we can't predict what's going to happen. The news is always very negative. There's nothing positive that's coming out
there's
of
nothing
this.
positive on the media ever, really, unbelievable. Yeah,
And just that it's been going on now for 9 months, so it's hard to say when it might come to an end.
yeah. Jason, you're American, right? Where are you from?
Yes, I'm originally from the US, from Michigan,
Okay.
and I left. I worked in Africa for more than 8 years, focusing on chimpanzees
Uh huh.
and the
How did
trafficking of.
how did all started? One day you say, like, I'm off to Africa. I'm off to. I need
It,
to see that.
it was pretty much that. Yes, I got out of university. I got a passport and I got a plane ticket. And South Africa was actually the first country that I went to, and I ended up staying for 8 years.
Okay.
And then I started doing more and more trips to the Middle East because of wildlife trafficking there. And I moved to Lebanon in 2007. So it's been nice. I've been able to visit many of the countries in the Middle East and done some work helping chimpanzees, for example, in Syria before the war, in the Emirates. A few years ago, I rescued a chimpanzee from Iraq, right when they were retaking parts of the area from ISIS. So that chimpanzee, we were able to rescue him. It took almost 3 years because of the conflict in Iraq, but he's now at a sanctuary in Kenya.
It's incredible how much you learn when you work on difficult cases or cases that are away from the reach of other organizations like ourselves. But it's incredible how much you learn about the nature of animals and about the nature of people as well.
Yeah, it's been a very, I can't say life is easy, but it's very interesting. And I appreciate in so many different experiences and that I've been able to visit all around the world. And what's nice is that it's usually local people who are caring about these animals, but just don't have that expertise or knowledge yet. So, for the animals that I'm being alerted to, it's because somebody in those countries actually does care.
Hmm.
So it just takes time to develop that. And certain places it's much easier than others.
Yeah. Now, as you know, we did help, or we did try to help with the rescue of Mars. I think our community got involved, and it helped quite a little bit.
Yes.
Um, Give us some words. I mean, how could we help you? Tell us what to do.
Yeah,
What?
the one thing that Animals Lebanon is working on now, and it's been in our plans for some years, and we're finally going ahead, is that currently we have one holding enclosure for wildlife like this, and we really need to expand that. So outside of Beirut, we're setting up what is termed as kind of a rescue center. So it won't be a permanent home for the animals, but it will better enable us to take in these types of animals and more at once so that we can then send them to a sanctuary. So
Okay.
we're still at the beginning stages of this. Lots of partners around the world trying to help out with expertise and design and training. But yes, we're hoping that we can get this facility set up in the next year so that we can help out more. For example, we have a zoo that we're working on now, and there are lions and bears and tigers and a jaguar. But unfortunately, we're not able to move them into our care yet. We have to leave them at the zoo until we can send them. So
Yeah,
it's
because
kind of a natural.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of a natural progression for us, just of development, and yes, we want to increase, especially that we've been taking in so many more of these animals, and then we don't need to feel as rushed. Um, if they need to stay with us for an extra month, that wouldn't be a problem. So yeah, we really need to create something for Animals Lebanon for these animals and be outside of Beirut a little bit.
Okay, okay. We have been in this live. We're dropping the donation link for Animals Lebanon after the interview ends. I will leave the donation link on the first comment and encourage our friends to donate directly to you. I've
Oh,
known you.
thank you.
I've known you and your wife for quite a few years now. I have to say that I admire you. I have to say that you have been amazing help to us on some of our rescues,
Mm.
and you're one of the very few, well, not very few. I admire a lot of people actually, but your work has been outstanding, and I can vouch. I can put my hand on the fire for you guys. It's really amazing what you're doing. It's wonderful to see Mars and now Freya and Sam in South Africa. I know when you rescued Mars, he ended up. I mean, he went to your living room. He was there for a while. Your wife sent me these videos, and I thought, oh my god, this is so great.
Yeah,
Um,
we're lucky in that we have a good place. So,
yeah,
because of
yeah,
the
yeah.
problems in the country and because of his age, it was actually easier for
It
us
was,
to take care of him with us.
yeah,
Just with the conflict and the protests, sometimes it's not that easy to be moving around as much. And
yeah.
because he requires such care. If you want, I'm back up here with Mars. We can turn around. So, this is actually his sign here in his
Okay, he's
story.
got. They changed it, Pythagoras. Oh well, it's a good
Yeah.
name. It's a good name, Pythagoras. Pythagoras, mathematician. Yeah, good, good.
So lots of the animals we rename them after they've been rescued, just to kind of
Yes,
give
of
them a new
course. Yeah,
start to their life.
happens with us as well. Yeah, yeah.
So he's here. He's actually getting excited because he knows in about an hour he's going to get his second meal of.
Second meal of the day.
Yeah, so he's watching. He knows where the food comes from and he knows which time it happens. So they get very used to the routine of people. So he's getting excited for that.
Wonderful. Very cool. Very cool, P. So nice. How long are you going to be in South Africa for? When are you going back to Lebanon?
I'll be back on the 5th. So I'm here for almost another, I don't know, 6 days, I guess.
Okay.
So I'll be here and visiting a couple other sanctuaries in the region.
Mm-hmm. Are you building links with other sanctuaries? Which ones
Yeah,
are your
so
favorites?
what? Sorry.
Which ones are your favorites?
Of sanctuary, they're all different. So what I like is that we've had positive experiences with so many different places. So I don't think I can say there is a favorite, and each sanctuary kind of has different things. So some might be bigger spaces for the animals, some might be more natural, some might have better veterinary care. So it's kind of looking at all of these different factors that an animal needs.
Mm-hmm.
Here he comes close.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do any of them work towards reintroducing them in nature, in the way in the in nature as
it's
such, or they always
it
stay in sanctuaries?
It really depends on the species of animal. So, in general, lions really aren't ever released. Once an endangered animal like this is born in captivity and kept in captivity for that many years, it's quite impossible to release.
Yeah.
And also, there's genetic issues. So, we'll never really, most of the animals that we have, because they have been inbred, and you could find mixtures that wouldn't necessarily even exist in the wild. So there isn't a genetic value to returning them or to releasing them.
Understand.
So unfortunately, yes, when there's an animal born in captivity, usually the animal is going to remain there. We do help out also local wildlife. So in that case, you'll return an animal to the wild, but those are animals which usually have only been out of the wild for a couple weeks and can easily be returned to the wild in Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, these animals, unfortunately, yes, they're going to remain in captivity for the rest of their life. But a sanctuary like this, where they have large enclosures and you have expert care, I mean, these are happy animals, and in general, they live longer lives than a wild lion just because you do
Yeah.
have that veterinary care and you don't have those pressures on you that you would if you're trying to survive in the wild.
Of course. Well, life in the wild is so cruel. When you think about it, the way every lion in the wild dies is super cruel. It's never easy.
Yeah, I mean, that's their life, but it's not an easy, idyllic thing that,
No, 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 no.
as people sometimes think.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
we'll, so that's him. I think we're going to walk around here and we'll see. So yeah, this is Stuart. One of the difficulties with rescuing him was this was right after the economic crisis in Lebanon, and then at the same time we had a fuel crisis. So he was kept at a zoo in the south of Lebanon, but to be able to
Hmm.
get him, we actually had to spend 2 days going and finding enough fuel so that we could drive back and forth to the zoo.
My God.
So it's just factors which you wouldn't normally have to consider.
Yeah. But this is why I always tell Maggie that you need to have a strong YouTube presence. You need to be able to tell those stories because they are fascinating, and we need to know. We need to know. It's such a great cause.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Sometimes I think for us it feels routine because it's just something which we've done for so long, and but yes, this is not normal. These are not the way that things are normally having to be done.
Yeah,
And sometimes it gets a little bit exhausting too, just because we have to deal with those issues, not just as an organization, but on a personal level too.
yeah,
So in that way, sometimes we forget about some things, or we have to just kind of move on. But yes, it is important that we're doing a better job telling what's happening in the region, especially because it is kind of unique. And I'm very pleased that this is something all started by Lebanese. And to think in just 10 years, we've passed a national law, we have joined an international convention. We are even working with the Ministry of Education to formally introduce animal welfare in the new school curriculum.
oh my God.
So, I mean, those are all fantastic things which can have a huge impact on the future. And
But it's
yeah, one of my favorite things is that we have passed this national law, and we can be home sitting on the couch and you're watching people on television programs debating and discussing the animal welfare law.
it's
So
wonderful.
it's
You
something
can
that went
see.
from one of our ideas to just being a reality and a normally accepted thing now in the country.
Hmm. Hmm. These things don't happen if people don't push, and I'm so glad that you guys are there, pushing relentlessly, never giving up. I mean, you guys are incredible, incredible.
Good, thank you.
Incredible. So, to our community, this is what happened to Mars in the end. Many of you have been asking, and I kept on blaming Maggie, but I knew Mars was well. He's in Drakenstein, becoming a real lion, not just a little tiny cub, and growing nicely. And these guys are amazing, really. And they
There's
need
a there's a Thank
help.
you for that. There's another lion here, but I think he's hiding. His name is Assad. We actually had him when he was old, 8 months old, and now he's fully grown, but also just kept as a private pet in downtown Beirut.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think he's laying in the back part of his enclosure for now.
Yeah, he just want to be on camera. Good for him. Good for
Yeah.
him. So, Jason, it's been a pleasure, really. I hope this won't be the last. It's been the first, but I hope it's not the last. And I basically, if any of our friends would like to help you, the link is there. They need help. These are amazing people. Their lives are dedicated to saving lives and to changing the world of the animals for the future. And you can see that. So, Jason, thank you very much. Truly,
Thank
thanks
thank you,
for
Victor. I appreciate.
for
Yes,
doing.
let's do it again when we have our next rescue that we're working on.
Sounds cool. Let's do this when you're back home. Okay. Tell us. Take us on a little journey through the streets of Lebanon. People need to see how it is. Okay.
Better end, but thank you for this. I really appreciate your supporters and for all the attention for Animals Lebanon. And very nice that we're able to get Pi here and now Freya, and yeah, actively working on a bunch more big cats. So hopefully we have some updates in the coming month about them.
Sounds good. You can count us in. You can count on our help. We'll be here.
Perfect. Thank you, Victor. Thank you.
Take care, man. Take care. Ciao,
Yep.
ciao.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.